Here are the top 10 good and bad things about the new Great Wall Motors Tank 300, in my opinion. Far out, that sun's bright. Starting with the good, and I'll count it down. Number 10, 7-year warranty. So Great Wall Motors offers a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty with all of its vehicles in Australia, which puts it pretty much at the top of the industry. Mitsubishi does offer a 10-year warranty on its vehicles, and Kia offers a 7-year warranty as well as MG. But in this specific class, so this competes with the likes of the Toyota Fortuner, Toyota Prado, Mitsubishi Pajero Sport, and those other kind of off-road rugged ladder frame style SUVs, Isuzu MU-X. And against those, 7 years warranty is very impressive. Number 9. A 5-star ANCAP rating. Look, this isn't a massive positive because most vehicles on the new car market come with or have been rated 5 stars by ANCAP. So it's not a standout feature, but it is a good feature, especially on a value-focused product like this, to see it have 5 stars. Number 8, standard kit. Yeah, so this comes fully equipped with pretty much everything that you need from a modern vehicle, including twin digital screens that run across the dash. I'll just start it up. Push button start as well. But yeah, nice integration of screens. They're not just sort of tacked onto the dashboard, they're actually fully embedded in the dash. And they offer Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. There are a few different display options as well, so you can go through and change the different displays on either side. And this is the top of the range Ultra model, which comes with an infinity stereo. Very nice speaker grills there too. And yeah, pretty much everything else that you'd expect on a modern vehicle, including adaptive cruise control, electric sunroof, and climate control. And this brings me on to number 7 actually. Interior design and materials. Yes, I'm very surprised. When I first jumped in this vehicle, I thought this is going to be, you know, it's a value focused, budget focused vehicle. I thought it was going to be pretty cheap and nasty, but it's really not. You've got these beautiful air vents on the dashboard, and they move really nicely too. It's like they're hydraulically damped, very quiet and smooth. And then you've got this leather style trim across the dash. It's nice and soft, contrast stitching along there, and it does look real actually, the contrast stitching. And then this quite nice metallic trim piece on the dash, which connects on this side too. It is a bit flashy, but I quite like it. It gives it a modern spin. And even this handle, like it's kind of got this soft touch, plasticky, rubbery surface over the top. And then even around here, it's not that typical, you know, elephant skin pattern like it is down here. It's just something a bit different. And even the door trims, nice little handle there with metallic or real metal trimmings with little Allen key bolts or star nut bolt things. Just feels much higher quality than the price suggests. Even shutting the doors, it's got that nice whoop. It's not a tinny rattly sound. It actually sounds really, really solid. Even winding the windows down actually. It's really quiet. Like I've heard, you know, some of the Japanese cars and even German vehicles have a louder power window noise than that. Even the key actually, check out that. It's got a rubber lining around the outside, and then all this is all rubber on the front there. Yeah, I'm very surprised with this interior. It is much more refined than you might expect, which is a great thing, but also even if you just compare it, forgetting about what you expect, compare it to some of the rivals, and this is actually more refined than, yeah, some of the more established rivals. Number 6, a refined engine. This features a 2-litre turbo petrol 4-cylinder, producing 162 kilowatts and 380 newton meters. Although those figures aren't that impressive for this class if you compare it to other petrol models, they do stack up well against the diesel, the common diesel rivals. But yes, it's very refined. It's got a nice little bassy note. Doesn't sound too thrashy or too loud. It's actually very quiet on the road. And peak torque is available from just 1800 RPM, which is pretty good for a petrol. So you don't have to rev the guts out of it just to achieve decent acceleration. Number 5, a smooth drive experience. Yeah, so basically on the back of that refined engine, it drives very nicely. Not in terms of the handling, I'll get to that in a minute, but just the drive in normal conditions, it's actually very smooth and quiet. But we'll hit the road and I'll give you a quick demonstration. Out on the road, it feels, yeah, it's nice and quiet, even though it is a pretty boxy shape. There's not too much wind noise, and the suspension is definitely comfortable. There are no major rattles or anything. It's very quiet in here. There's a little bit of vagueness from the steering just on center there, so it's a little bit of play, but it's just, yeah, there's a bit of sloppiness just at the start. Through the corners, there's a little bit of body roll happening, and you can feel a bit of sloppiness in the front end. But if the trade-off is excellent off-road performance, then yeah, that's just a thing that you have to weigh up. What's your priority? So down through this tight corner, it's reasonably flat. I can feel a lot of the weight being put onto that outside wheel on the front. Yeah, it's not too bad. For an off-road vehicle, it's not too bad. Number 4, ground clearance and approach and departure angles. This has a 33-degree approach angle, so that's the angle from the front of the car, or the furthest or lowest most point of the front of the car, down to the tyre. So that means you can approach steep little mounds and things without it scrubbing out the front end. 33 degrees is actually, you know, it's pretty impressive for an SUV in this class. But the rear departure angle is 34 degrees, which is very impressive for this class. That means you can go up very steep mounds and things, and it won't come up and scrape the bumper bar there. If you put a tow bar on the back, that of course affects the overall angle, but at least you won't scratch the bumper bar. You'll hit the tow bar first. And then underneath, the Tank 300 offers 224 millimeters of ground clearance, which is about average for this vehicle segment if you go up against those rivals. And then on the back of that, number 3, you've got good off-road preparation. So this comes with a front and rear differential lock, which is very impressive for something that, you know, it's not traditionally a hardcore off-roader. And a few different drive modes you can select from, including up here, and then low range. You've also got a unique turnaround function that allows you to spin the vehicle around in a shorter radius. I'll show you that in a minute. And this all boils down to number 2, which is real off-road performance. So we'll hit the dirt now and see how it goes. Along a corrugated dirt road like this, the suspension it's comfortable. It's definitely, you know, it's pretty smooth, but I am getting some bump steer happening, and it's sort of, the steering goes a bit light. So over here, it's not giving me much steering while the wheels are shuddering up and down. Look, it's definitely comfortable along a dirt road like this, but I think it needs some suspension tuning, maybe a firmer spring, just to make sure that wheel stays firmly planted on the ground. Okay, into some slightly more serious stuff. None of what I'm doing today is hardcore, but I think it gives you a bit of an idea of what this vehicle can do if you want to take it on a nice camping trip or something like that. So I'll put it in 4H. That seems to turn a lot of the safety systems off, which is good. We'll just leave the diff locks off at the moment. So these are pretty deep ruts. I've been through here some vehicles and it scrubs out the middle. Did a little bit there, but overall it pulled through with no issue. some ruts and things here. Yeah, so that slightly, you know, soft and perhaps sloppy suspension means the wheels can really flex around. And I think it's providing good articulation. I'll get out and we'll have a look at that. All right, down here we've got some deep ruts, so we'll see what sort of flex it offers. Go back up this steep little rut here. Yeah, no problem at all. You can actually feel it really flexing around. All right, let's see how it goes through this mud section. Easy. Yeah, very good. Okay, we'll try out the hill descent controls. Just a little button on the side here, and a symbol comes up on the dash. This might not look that steep on camera, but it's actually quite steep and it goes up the other side there. So that's the stability control and everything working its magic. Just maintaining complete control while I've got my feet off the pedals. And then back up again. So we've got a few little boulders and things. I can feel it really flexing around. I'll go into this little ditch over here. The cameras do provide a bit of a handy view, but I mean, you can't tell exactly what's going on there, but if there was a big tree stump or something like that, or if you come over a crest and there's a big rock, then this will show you that there's something there. But it's not completely, not just this system, but I've driven other SUVs and utes and things that have camera systems. They're not, you know, you can't rely on that. You're better off looking outside, obviously. It's just good if there's an obstacle that you might not see. So just here, there's a big, it probably doesn't look like it on camera, but there's a big sort of a wheel ditch there. But on the on these cameras here, you can't really see anything, so it doesn't really. So it's just there. It's not really showing me that there's any sort of hazard. Yeah, I definitely think it needs a firmer spring, because over some of these bumps, I can feel it. It feels like it's bottoming out, like the front corner is actually hitting the bump stop. I'm not, you know, going flying along here in a rally sort of scenario, but I don't think it should bottom out pretty much at all unless I do something really drastic. Whereas this seems to be bottoming out when I'm, you know, not going at ridiculous speeds or anything. But overall, yeah, it's definitely an off-road vehicle. And you can use this to go on your camping trips and so on, or even go on some four-wheel drive expeditions. Yeah, it's scraping a little bit there. I'm going quite slow. The Tank 300 also comes with this kind of unique turnaround function. So what you've got to do is have it in neutral to start with, in low range, and you have to activate the crawl control function. You'll see a little symbol come up there on the dash. Then you can hit this button. And a little symbol will also show on the dash. And what that will try to do is clamp the inside wheel at the back and let you sort of pivot around the corner while the back inside wheel is stopped. And it will just reduce the turning radius for you. Obviously, this sort of thing is not meant for tarmac surfaces. It needs to be a loose surface to allow that wheel to skid on the dirt. And it's definitely not designed for doing donuts. And then the number one good thing about the Tank 300, in my opinion, is the price. This top of the range Ultra version starts from around $50,000. If you stack that up against some of the rivals that I mentioned with similar kit and sort of flagship variants, you're going to be looking at $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 or even more in some cases. So for 50 grand, I think that's pretty good value. Starting with number 10. Yeah, the Badge. Great Wall Motors is pretty small in Australia. It is part of a huge company based in China, but yeah, it's pretty small in Australia. So you're not going to have those bragging rights that you might get with some of the rivals like Toyota, Isuzu, Mitsubishi, which means, yeah, it's going to affect other things as well, or it could affect other things as well, such as servicing. With fewer dealerships out there, it means you're kind of going to be cornered into the dealership nearest to you. If you drive to the next one, it could be, hundreds of kilometers away, especially if you're based in a regional area. There's also some question marks around the reliability. Not saying that this is going to be unreliable, I just mean that there's no data there. There's no long-term data. So with a company like Isuzu or Toyota, they've got decades of history there, local history as well. So they know when there's problems with the vehicles, they know to fix them, they know that they're common, so they'll get on top of it straight away. Whereas with a new vehicle like this, yeah, they just don't have that extensive history, that data to fall back on. Number 9, and this kind of comes off the back of number 10, resale value. So being a small brand in Australia, the resale value is likely to be lower. I'm not saying it definitely will be, but it's likely to be lower. And it's even more so with value-focused cars. So the price is already pretty low. The price can only go down in the future. It's not going to go up, or it isn't likely to go up. I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't take that as a serious comment, but just in my opinion, the resale value is going to be lower than something that is a bit more expensive and something that has a bit more history in Australia. Number 8, boot capacity. In the back here, I can't seem to find the official volume rating in terms of litres, but that is a pretty small boot compared with some of those rivals that I mentioned earlier, like the Prado and things like that. It doesn't go in very deep. I'll try and get a good angle there so you can see. It's only, kind of a metre long there, or maybe not even that. It's a nice box layout, so you'll definitely be able to maximise the space in terms of getting, a big piece of furniture or something in the back here. And it does come with these little pockets on the sides and a full adaptive style power outlet, so you can fit an Australian plug in there. That's rated to 120 watts, as well as a 12-volt socket, which definitely comes in handy. Some hooks on the sides there, and you can fold down the rear seats as well. You can actually lift this bottom piece up and then fold this part down, and it gives you a nice flat bench to work with. So it's completely flat. So that is handy. But just in terms of the overall space in the default layout, that is a little bit small compared with some of those rivals like the MUX, the Prado is going to be much bigger than that. And even the soft roader rivals, so the big 7-seat SUVs like the CX-9, the Toyota Kluger, and the big vehicles like that. I'd just like to point out a little feature here, the spare wheel on the back. I reckon that's so cool. It's such a retro thing, but I think it's actually very functional and practical to have it on the back there, especially for a off-road style vehicle like this. Because if you get a flat tire, the last thing you want to do is be getting into the mud and extracting the rear tire from under the boot, or perhaps even worse still, have it located under the boot floor there, because that means you've got to put a flat, dirty tire back in there as well, then put all your gear back on top. So if you have it on the back there, I think that's very handy for doing proper off-road exploring. Number 7, yeah, speaking of tires, so this does feature, they're pretty good tires. I'm surprised that a sort of budget-focused brand would choose Michelin tires. They're Primacy SUV tires with the word or the lettering SUV printed on the side. It kind of suggests, you can do some level of off-roading, but they're totally road-oriented tires. These are not designed for ripping up the mud. You can go on the mud with them, but yeah, they're not purely designed for that. And what I'm getting at is, this seems like such an off-road focused vehicle with the diff locks, the live axle rear suspension, and then you have these off-road style tyres on it. It just doesn't quite make sense to me. Number 6. Sorry, I've just had to move the car because they're doing some council work over there. Active safety tech can be a bit over the top. It is great that the Tank 300 does come with a lot of the active safety features or technologies that are out there at the moment, but I think it's just as important for manufacturers to really fine-tune and calibrate these systems so they are actually adding safety to the vehicle. For example, the lane keep assist in this, I think, is a bit too over the top, it's a bit too sensitive, so I turn it off every time I drive it. And obviously you're not getting the safety benefit from it when you turn it off. With everything turned on, including the lane assist function, the vehicle is trying to take complete control. So right now it's pulling at the steering wheel. And yeah, it's just a bit off-putting. I don't think it's helping me at all, because you're getting these little tugs happening, like it's got the steering then, but then it just lets go, so it's not completely refined. I'll try and do that again. So it's got the steering now, but it's telling me to go into the grass there. See, it's just yanked it over to the left then. Now it's just let go. So it's you can't rely on it, so you end up turning it off anyway, so then it doesn't provide any safety benefit at all when it's off. But leaving the emergency lane keeping on, it still tries to pull at the steering wheel if you don't stay perfectly parallel in the lane, which is pretty much impossible on a winding country road like this. You can't stay exactly, you know, the perfect distance on this side to this side. The vehicle is going to move around a little bit, and in that sense, or in that case, it's just continuously going off and telling me to correct the steering and trying to take over. It's just come up with a warning then. The emergency lane keep function has been activated, even though it's on anyway. Yeah, I think it just needs more tuning and calibration, especially in conditions like this. And in Australia, roads like this are very common. It also features a lead vehicle warning, so if you get too close to a vehicle in front, it'll flash up with a warning. Again, I pretty much turn that off as well, because if you're in traffic, you have to approach a vehicle. You're not going to leave a 20-metre gap between you and the vehicle in front, otherwise someone else will get into that gap. So they're great initiatives, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating for, you know, to take all these systems away. I just think they need fine-tuning, and it's not just the Tank 300. A lot of new vehicles out there at the moment, I feel, in my opinion anyway, they need to fine-tune them before just throwing them on there. Number 5, floppy handling, but to be expected. Yeah, so this features a ladder frame chassis, as I said, with live axle rear suspension. That's because it's beneficial when you're off-roading and even towing to some degree, but I'll get to that in a second. But what it means is it's not as refined or as dynamic as a vehicle that has independent suspension. So a lot of the crossovers in this class, like the CX-9 and so on, they handle much better than this on the road. In terms of, you know, driving around corners and roundabouts and things, I'm not talking about just flat out driving in the mountains, I mean just driving normally. And this does feel a little bit cumbersome, a little bit floppy in the front end, but the trade-off is you get excellent off-road performance. I guess it just comes down to your priorities. If you're going to actually drive off-road, and pretty regularly, like, you know, at least a few times per year, then a vehicle like this can definitely be fun and handy. Whereas if you're never going to go off-road, then I would suggest looking at the crossovers first, because you still get the practicality of a wagon format, and you still get that sort of go anywhere attitude, even though you're not going to go anywhere anyway, but you can, you know, drive up steep driveways and things and not have to worry about scrubbing the front end compared with a conventional station wagon. But then, yeah, you're not getting the downsides of having something that's probably better prepared than what you are prepared to be, if that makes sense. Number 4, fuel consumption. This does feature a petrol engine, as mentioned, and that is pretty uncommon in this class if you compare it against the popular diesel rivals. But it does mean that it's pretty thirsty. It's a turbo engine, so it's It's got good refinement, as I said, and good low end torque. The official average is 9 litres per 100 kilometres, but across my week of testing, this is averaging 13 litres per 100. If you compare it against those diesel rivals, I average about 9 litres per 100 to 10 litres per 100 in the real world, in the diesel, so that's like the MUX, although the MUX is a bit lower, but the Fortuner, the Ford Everest, vehicles like that, I have averaged about 9 to 10 in the real world. So for this to record 13 in the real world, that's a little bit high in my opinion. Number 3. Towing compared with rivals. Yeah, so the towing rating in this is 2.5 tons for the braked towing capacity, which is pretty low compared with some of those diesel rivals which are up at 3.5 tons. Again, it comes back to your priorities. If you need towing, yeah, there are better options out there, but I think it's a bit odd that a vehicle like this with a ladder frame chassis, live axle rear suspension, still is only offering 2.5 tons. I think it should be higher than that, maybe 3 tons or something like that would be more respectable. Number 2, no 7-seat option. Against those rivals, which all pretty much offer 7 seats, this only comes with 5 seats. Although, in saying that, this rear seat area is actually quite accommodating and a little bit luxurious. You've got heaps of legroom in here, like look at that, that's just enormous amount of legroom, and actually headroom is very good as well because of the way the ceiling drops back there after the sunroof. So my head is nowhere near hitting the ceiling. You could actually fit, someone that's really tall could probably fit in here quite comfortably. This rear bench is a bit reclined. It doesn't have different adjustment settings for the recline position, but it already is in the default position quite laid back. It's actually very comfortable. And you've got these sort of concave style seats that provide some lateral support, especially on the outside. And then more of that quality trim as well, contrast stitching even in the back, including on the door trims. And those Mercedes-inspired speaker grills. It's just that if you're in this market segment and you do need 7 seats, then this is going to be crossed off your list pretty much straight away. And then the number 1 bad thing about the GWM Tank 300 is, in my opinion, the design. Obviously this is a big opinion thing, but I just think it looks too much like a Jeep Wrangler. Actually, scrap that. That's not the number 1 bad thing about the Tank 300. I've just been doing the performance testing for this with the V-Box and did some braking tests, and it didn't come up with very good results. So from 100 kilometers an hour down to 0, it took 44.46 meters. That's not a very good distance for a SUV, especially one that features those road-going tires. I'd usually see that sort of distance with pretty hardcore models like the Raptor and things like that have proper off-road tires, even mud style tires. But not only that, it felt very funny or very unusual as I was doing the braking tests, and the back of the vehicle rose right up off the, to the point where it came off the ground. So I put the GoPro under the vehicle just to double check, attached it to the chassis just there. And sure enough, yeah, the back wheels actually leave the ground. I ran the test in multiple directions, and I put the camera on both sides as well, just to make sure that there was no, little bump or something on the road. And yeah, both times, so 4 different occasions, the back wheel came off the ground by, half a centimetre or something like that. We also ran some tests on regular public roads and at different speeds. That's not ideal at all, because if you're going around a corner or in the wet or something like that, the back wheel's leaving the ground under hard braking, there's a potential to lose stability and control pretty easily. I think GWM needs to work on its braking calibration, but also that floppy sort of suspension feel, I think that does contribute, because it does dip right down into the front and the back comes right up or to the point where it comes off the ground. So it just needs a bit more calibration, a bit more suspension tuning to iron out that issue. There you have it, the top 10 good and bad things about the Tank 300. Let me know what you think. Have I missed something, or have you bought one of these or thinking of buying one of these? Let me know in the comments. And please, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, as it will help the channel grow. Thanks for watching. Better not forget my phone on the bumper bar.